Tucker Whitman.
Here.
Andy Dennison.
Present.
Ben Vitale.
Present.
Chris Petrus.
Here.
Paul Pickney.
All day.
Aileen McNabb Coleman.
Present.
Keith Batman.
Here.
Joe DeForest is excused. Charlie Ripley.
Present.
Joseph Bennett.
Here.
Elaine Daly.
Here.
Timothy Lattimore.
Present.
Michael Didio.
Here.
Ryan Foley.
Present.
Pat Mahoney.
Here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silent prayer. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
So, pull that microphone that way. I think that's picking it up. That's better.
So at this time, I would like to open the public hearings to adopt local law providing for a salary increase for Cayuga County Vice Chairperson elected for a fixed term during their term, and a local law setting the salary for the county attorney appointed for a fixed term during their term. Anybody like to speak on those issues? All right. We will keep that open for an hour and then vote on those two laws. At this time, I would ask for designations of a majority and minority leader. We'll do majority first as some changes have happened with this body. Mr. Batman.
If I may, it's my understanding from the emails we received from our county attorney that this is a procedure, a process that we may or may not go through, that it would be up to the body to determine whether or not we would remove these designations. Do I understand that correctly?
Yes.
If that's the case, then I would suggest that procedurally, we need a motion to make it possible to change the majority-minority designations in mid-year. Would you agree with that, sir?
Well, I think a motion would be an acceptable form to do it. I do note that your rules allow for the chairman to add to the agenda at his discretion also, so I think either way is appropriate.
So we could change our rules of order?
You can, by motion, majority
By
vote.
motion.
Mhm.
So is there a motion to go down this road and designate a new majority and minority leader?
I'll make a motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? If not, Mr. Batman?
Yeah, I just want to point out that I don't think this matters, frankly, one way or the other. I'm not sure what the purpose or the point of going through the process is. It seems a distraction during this period when we're looking at public laws and we're looking at the budget, but that's all.
Any other discussion?
Can I just have roll call vote, please?
Yep. Further discussion?
Yeah, we're ready.
If not, we'll do a roll call vote.
This is for majority, right?
This is to go down to designate a new majority and minority leader.
Okay. Tucker Whitman.
Yes.
Andy Dennison.
Yes.
Ben Vitale.
No.
Chris Petrus.
Yes.
Paul Pickney.
Yes.
Aileen McNabb Coleman.
No.
Keith Batman.
No.
Joe DeForest is excused. Charlie Ripley.
Yes.
Joseph Bennett.
Yes.
Elaine Daly.
No.
Timothy Lattimore.
Yes.
Michael Didio.
Yes.
Ryan Foley. Pat Mahoney.
Yes.
Passed.
All right, so now we can move on with any nominations for a majority leader. Mr. Ripley.
I'd like to nominate Mr. Didio as majority leader.
Do we have a second for Mr. Didio? Any discussion on that nomination? If not, do we want a roll call vote on this, or? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. Any nominations from minority leaders? Or leader? Mr. Foley,
Mr. Chairman, at this time, I'd like to nominate Elaine.
is there a second?
As Chairman of
Second.
Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. If we can have those two come up and,
I was was hoping to nominate Nancy Pelosi, but she's not here tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Lattimore. So, Ms. Daly and Mr. Didio, if you can come up and be sworn in and sign the book.
One at a time, or?
You can both come up.
All right.
We'll do the double swearing method.
We raise the whole thing.
So it's the same oath for, except for that one word, so I'll just read it to you. And do you want to raise your right hand, please? I, and then state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of majority and minority chair
And minority leader.
to the best of your ability.
To the best of my ability.
Okay, Mike.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Lattimore.
while they're signing the book, I think that Mr. Petrus and I have indicated that,
Thank you.
and I think it was brought up through this action, that a charter or some other rules of the ledge, maybe Mr. Foley can bring it up at the government ops as to,
That would be the appropriate venue.
yes, but I'd like to further look into the charter like Onondaga County has and see whether or not that might fit us better.
Yes, Mr. Foley.
Okay, I just want clarification on what he's asking for.
I would-
Operation.
We have a leadership team that is working on looking into that to come up with a suggestion. I think if we look at government ops, we may need to look at our rules of order just to clearly define what would happen in a situation like this, so that there is no question. So I think it'd be more of just reviewing rules of order
Okay.
for this body.
Yeah.
But the other part of that equation will continue
Okay.
down the process that we're going.
Thank you.
All right. So, thank you. So, is this me or you, Sheila?
Let's see, no proclamations, no that. Okay, minutes to approve, October 23rd and October 30th.
Move them. Second.
Any discussion on the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, no appointments, communications and announcements.
Motion to bundle,
Waive the reading.
To waive?
waive the reading, yeah. That too.
Second.
Any discussion on the communications and announcements? All in favor? Of waiving?
I have a,
Yes, Mr. Didio.
for the record, I'd like to, in the communications and announcement, add, a card was sent to me from Sidney Gilfus, thanking me for the experience. So we could add that to it.
All right, thank you. We do have one person for the public to be heard. Mickey Belosi, if you could step up to the podium.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to give you an update on Cornell Cooperative Extension. I am Mickey Belosi. I am the treasurer and the acting secretary of the board of directors. On October 25th, we hosted an annual meeting. Cornell professor Quirine Kettering spoke to a room full of guests. Her topic was challenges and strategies used for agriculture production. You know that Doug Verbers has retired. I read in your minutes that that had been announced. That was on November 2nd. Our board of directors with Paul O'Connor and Cornell Cooperative Extension Administration are pursuing an executive director. We expect that search to take 4 to 6 months. We now have on board Katie Moran as interim as our search gets underway. Katie started on November 9th. Her background with nonprofit leadership and financial oversight and her work with several youth and family initiatives make her a good choice to lead Cooperative Extension forward and work with Mr. Wood and the legislature in the interim. As described in the Citizen article on Saturday, we are moving forth with our process of cooperating with Cayuga Community College on the building transfer and broadening our job training and continuing education programs. During this time of transition in leadership, we have 4-H youth programs continue, Master Gardener programs continue, and nutrition programs continue. We have a plan for support of our ag constituents as we pursue a full-time agricultural position. Board priorities are finalizing of our agreement with Cayuga Community College, environmental programming, the executive director search, agricultural programming, and funding stabilization. We have other board members here tonight, and our next board meeting is scheduled for November 29th. Anyone is welcome to attend that meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that brings us to the CCC report. Dr. Durant, because we changed our meeting day, is not available to be here tonight. So we can move on to committee reports and individual legislator reports. Mr. Lattimore.
Mr. Chairman, now that the elections are over, I mentioned in caucus that I would like to see our elected officials come and maybe for us to have a laundry list of top priorities that we might want to have in the county, like additional monies for broadband or to get our infrastructure for water and sewer maybe upgraded. I know that you and I and several other legislators went to Washington. We were at Congressman Cacco's office, and we'd like to have maybe those people present, or maybe a little forum somewhere that we can have maybe the public there too. But I would like to get a priority list for our electeds, Seward, Finch, and Mrs. Helming, and see what we can get back in regards to grants. And if we can't have a grant writer, maybe in our budget we should put some money in for grant writing to make sure we get our fair share. I know that there was a clawback. I think the movie hub, Cayuga County had $75,000 for one project, and I think some of the money out of that $75,000 might have gone to the movie hub, which so I want to make sure that we have a placeholder for some of that money that was promised to us.
Thank you, Mr. Lattimore. Any other legislators? Mr. Dennison.
And another thing we should do too is start communicating more with our other upstate counties. You know, I put in the one email that, you know, we blame everything on mandates. Well, we got back more money from the state for indigent defense because enough counties got together and complained. So we need to start doing that with our fellow counties and complaining more about, you know, I mean, I know some people who disagree with me, but what's the governor going to do? Cut off the funding to all the upstate counties if we all get together and tell them, look, we've had enough? I'd like to see it, because I don't think it'll happen, but we got to have the guts to do it. So.
Thank you. Mr. Didio.
Thank you. We do have a seat with the inter-county of Western New York, 19 counties. And usually we, each month, 8 months out of 12, we have we have roughly 12 counties, 14 counties, depending on where they are, somewhat way down in the corner, Cattaraugus County, and the others that are stuck in the corner, Allegheny County. It's difficult to get there from here, but in that area, they have quite a few people. And they have, a lot of people don't like to come up here. So we're trying to plan something different for Cayuga County for the summer of, which I already reserved. And if anyone wants to attend, it'd be a good idea to see how the inter-counties work and see what that process is. We have an attorney and an affiliate of the NISAC that responds to what we say to them and brings it to the governor's office. So I think it would, to stand behind what Mr. Dennison is asking is that you can see that that is a avenue to promote.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other legislator reports? Mr. Foley?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just for the people that weren't available to attend government operations this past month, we discussed putting the 10% policy that we have for hiring into something that is officially written, because right now it's just kind of word of mouth and subject to multiple interpretations. Justin graciously said that he would be bringing forward something to government operations for next month that highlights kind of what they are going by right now, so we can, the legislature as a whole, can take a look at that, try to understand it, and then maybe guide it to what we initially thought it should be. So I just wanted to let everyone know that that's coming up for next month.
Thank you. Any other reports? All right, before we get to the county administrator's reports, is there anybody that would like to speak to the two local laws that we have on the table for tonight? All right, we will come back to those. Mr. Woods?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be brief tonight. As you know, most of the month was spent working on the budget. We did meet for a special meeting a few weeks ago, and at that meeting, one of the questions was why we brought an unrelated resolution up, the energy resolution, when we were discussing other issues. But I want to just tell you about how that worked out for us. In the last 2 weeks, the natural gas futures have gone from 3.2 cents a therm to 4.58. So what that would have meant if we had waited was $25,000 a year for 2 years. So it would have been, it's a $50,000 savings by us bringing that resolution forward when we did. I couldn't have told you then that we were going to save that, but I do want you to know that that did work out strongly in our favor. So thank you for acting on that when we brought it forward. We had several special Ways and Means meetings to work on the budget. I've been meeting with the mayor in Union Springs to discuss ways that we can support the continued fishing tourism over there with the, they've got another elite bass fishing tournament on the schedule for next summer. I attended the Equal Rights Heritage Center opening with many of you. That's really it. I don't have a lot of individual things to report this month. I was really focused on the budget.
Questions? All right, so for my report, I too will be brief because it's been a busy month. I first want to thank Lynn and Justin and all the department heads for all the work on the budget. I think that they brought forward a spending plan that makes sense. And, you know, it's not finalized yet, but I think that they worked within the parameters that we had set for them and made some good decisions. So thank you to everybody that was involved in that. As far as the charter and redistricting and all that stuff is happening, now that election season is over, we did have the two commissioners in prior to the elections and decided to wait till after the elections to get the process going again. I will be reaching out to them to set up another meeting where they can come in with numbers of what it would look like throughout the city and the county and have something concrete as far as the redistricting piece goes to move forward. Looking at, again, a 2022 decision on, or not decision, but implementation part of that. As part of that discussion, that group will also be looking into the charter issue and making a recommendation to this body, which ultimately will have to make that decision. So that's all that I have right now, unless anybody has any questions. All right, then we will go right into Ways and Means. Mr. Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The regular monthly resolutions, 1B went through on the Ways Committee, and I'd like to offer that up.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Those are carried.
Ways and Means had 8 resolutions. They all went through the committee and passed. I'd like to offer them up as a bundle.
Move it.
Second.
Mr. Petrus? You good? Any discussion?
So I'd just like to offer my concerns with Ways and Means 8. So are we at 2.4 or where are we now?
Yes, well, with the recommendations that were included in the resolution from Ways and Means, that would put it at 2.4.
2.4. So as stated before, I was hoping for closer to 2. So, but I am going to support this in that there is some cuts that are made, but I'm hoping for more spending cuts in the future, in the near future.
Okay. Further discussion? Mr. Lattimore?
Mr. Chairman, I think there was some discussion, I wasn't on the panel, but in regards to some economic development money, I think it was $175,000 as to whether or not we leave it where it is in economic development or whether we transfer it back into the general black hole called the general fund. I'd like to see that stay where it is, so it's identified for future economic development. I think there's a couple projects that might need some funding going forward here.
Ms. Daly?
And what I took away from that is that there's still an opportunity to dedicate money for 2011 if the body wants to pass a resolution to dedicate some money for 2011, or excuse me, 2018. And, yeah, 2018. So even though the existing resolution expired in 2017, there still is an opportunity, if we pass a resolution before the end of the year, to move some money for that purpose from the 2018 budget. There's also an opportunity, if I understood you correctly, that at the end of each budget cycle, when the budget is reconciled, maybe that's March of the following year, that there could be money dedicated for that purpose, as we all, whether we dedicate to roads or buildings for that same purpose. If we put the $170,000 back in the 2019 budget, then we've just increased our spending by $170,000, is my concern.
Correct. There is an expense in the 18 budget that right now isn't authorized by resolution, but it certainly could be, as it could be extended to 2019. My recommendation is that you could also fund that out of you could fund that reserve out of fund balance as you've done with road and building reserves. You could do it through the budget, or you could do it after the reconciliation. If you wanted to do it through the budget, then you could increase your expense and your fund balance draw and do it right through the budget. If you wanted to wait for an end-of-the-year accounting, review your fund balance, and then make those decisions out of the fund balance, you could also do it that way.
Because taking it out, when Ways and Means took that out, that also decreased the county's budget spending by $170,000.
Well, it decreased the fund, yes, it decreased the expense and it decreased the fund balance draw. So that didn't come off the tax levy, it decreased the fund balance draw.
Mr. Foley?
Yeah, I mean, just sitting on Ways and Means, Tim's point is well taken. I don't know a single legislator that doesn't want economic development in this county or funds dedicated as such. I believe the thought, and again, to Elaine's point, was taking that $170,000 out restores it to the county coffers for now. What Justin has said is that in 2019, he wants to come forward, present a plan for maybe additional funds to the reserve count, additional capital reserve count, additional funds to buildings and roads, and then additional funds to economic development, and that would be part of a more comprehensive plan. That was kind of the thought process, that was the way to go, and give us a broad overview at that time.
Mr. Petrus.
I just, again, wanted to clarify, because it feels like we're talking about shuffling. I think that we're so very close right now. It's my understanding that Justin got us down to 2.4. I think it's, if I'm correct, it's just $160,000. It's what we're looking for to get to around 2. That means we're doing our fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers. There's still room left in there for increase in or revenue, I guess I should say. So I just want to say that we should stay focused on reducing that tax. 160,000 isn't that much in a budget of 150 million. We can do that. So I just hope that any budget that I support will be around 2%.
Mr. Pinckney.
Justin, just for clarity, moving forward, if we changed nothing after this cycle, in 2020, would that 170 go back into the economic development line?
Right now, the resolution that authorized that the automatic transfer expired in 2017. Okay. So my recommendation would be to come forward and make a recommended appropriation into the reserve out of the fund balance that was at or potentially even more than the 170. By doing it once you've done your end of the year accounting, then you can look at what your total fund balance is and look at where you need to be in accordance with your fund balance policy, and then make investments into your reserve accounts all at one time.
Mr. Batman.
So the I'm unclear is that there is a line in the 2018 budget for 170?
I don't know if it's exactly 170. Lynn could probably look up what that number is.
It's 150 in the 2018 budget.
Right, so it's a line.
There is a line with an expense.
So my point being is that it does not require any kind of resolution if we pass a budget that has a line.
No, it does.
No, it would still require you to approve the transfer.
But, yeah, okay, I guess that technically. The other thing I want to clarify, and I'm fine moving forward with this, I understand the reasoning, but it's a mistake for us to think that the 170 is a savings because we took it out. The 170 has been spent for other things. The 170 was in as revenue, and it was in as an expense, and that expense was to economic development. What we've done is we've taken the expense out of the budget, leaving the revenue, as I understand it. Is that correct?
Yes.
So the revenue then has been spent in the budget. There are two ways to avoid impact on the fund balance, and that's kind of my point. We need to be clear on this. One way is to reduce expenditures, or the other way is to in this case is to take that money out. It's fundamentally a reduction in expenditure is my point. It's not adding to the fund balance, except by kind of the fact that you've reduced the expense.
net reduction.
There are other expenditures we could reduce if it were a priority to keep the 170 in economic development. So I think it'll work out fine, assuming this coming year is profitable for us in terms of revenue and expense balance, then it won't make a difference. If we have a bad year, it will make a difference because there's no reserve set aside. And we just need to be clear on that, what we're voting.
Mr. Dennison.
How much did we put in highway last year? Was it 4 million? 2 million? Did we spend that? I mean, I guess that's where I'm going. If we're going to put money in these reserves, then let's spend it for the taxpayers, because our roads suck. We all know that. So, I mean, it's the taxpayers' money. So just putting it in a reserve to say, oh, look, we're building up our reserves and our fund balance. Well, you're getting it from the taxpayers. Give them something back. Use it if you're putting it in there.
Mr. Foley.
Yeah, just to Keith's point, just for clarification on what Ways and Means did, that the 170 was part of a much larger reduction from Ways and Means. And so the savings, if you will, quote unquote, savings that we had from that, we did two things. We reduced the sales tax, the property tax percentage from 2.9 to 2.4. We also reduced the amount that we are using of our drawing the fund balance from, I don't know, roughly 900,000 to 807,000. So, I mean, it's not like it was immediately spent. I do take Keith's point well, but it was done with purpose and was done with benefits to that.
Further discussion? Ms. McNabb Coleman.
I just wanted to say, as a member of Ways and Means, I will support WM8, but to echo Mr. Petrus's comments, there is still room to work on this budget, and I look forward to coming meetings where we continue to work together to establish an even better, an even lower percentage rate. Thank you.
Further discussion? Mr. Lattimore.
I just want to make sure there's a placeholder for a grant writer in case there's some economic development in a part of our county that might need a grant for water lines to support that project.
I would say when that project comes forward, we can have that discussion and how we fund it.
All right.
Any other discussion? If not, all in favor of WM 1 through 8?
Aye.
Opposed? Those are carried. Anything else, Mr. Bennett?
No, sir, thank you.
All right, Health and Human Services, Ms. Daly.
Yes, Health and Human Services had 2 resolutions this month. They were reviewed and passed at committee, and unless anyone wants to talk about them individually, we can vote on them as a bundle, HH1 and HH2.
Any discussion on HH1 and HH2?
It was a slow month.
If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Yeah. All right, do we have a motion on HH1 and HH2? A second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Those are carried. Would anybody like to speak on the 2 local laws? All right. Before we get into government ops, I would entertain a motion to go into executive session for a personnel issue,
Move it.
employment of a particular individual.
Second.
It will be very brief.
It will be very brief. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
You should be. Motion to bundle, GO1 through GO4.
Did you guys make a motion to come back in?
You did.
You did? Who did it?
Ryan
The island of misfit toys.
All right, now that we're back in regular session, we will move on to government operations.
Oh, that's Foley.
Mr. Chairman, Government Operations has 4 resolutions. I offer up GO1, 3, and 4 as a bundle. Unless I don't like one singled out, we will be amending GO2 after this.
I just want to make a comment. I made a comment in our committee that the Mitel phone system.
Can we get a motion and a second so we can have a discussion?
Second.
All right, now, Mr. Lattimore.
Thank you. I did make a motion on the phone system. We were doing shared services. I know that the city had Mitel, and I think the college, I don't know what system they have, but it would be nice if the city, the college, and the county could maybe go out to bid on that, what our needs are going to be in the future.
Any other discussion on GO 1, 2, and 4?
1, 3, and
Or, I'm sorry, 1, 3, and 4. If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, GO2.
Mr. Chairman, GO2 has, needs to be amended. It has certain names in it right now for people that want to serve on the committee or were selected to serve on the committee to hire the new county attorney, and that needs to be amended.
Motion to amend.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to amend the committee members,
Right.
and that would be,
And I don't want to speak for Dennison, but just name the amendment, just so we know.
Do what?
If you name the amendment. The motion to amend it.
Mr. Pinckney.
Pick a name.
Are you putting in Jim Orman's name in?
I
the
will be
amendment?
putting Jim Orman's name into the interview
So
committee.
motion to amend to change the name of a person on the committee.
Right.
How's that?
Thank you. Does that, are we good with that?
Is that good?
You're switching out Chris's name for Jim
Yep.
Orman's name.
Any discussion on the amendment? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, now GO2 as amended. Any discussion? Motion?
Motion.
Motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? GO2's carried. Anything else, Mr. Foley?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, planning.
Mr. Chairman, planning had one resolution that was tabled, so we'll take it back to committee, and we'll see you next time around.
Thank you. Public Works.
Mr. Chairman, Public Works has 5 resolutions. I would like to bundle 1, 2, 3, and 4, unless anyone would like one of those singled out.
Whoa.
I'd like to single out number 4.
Number 4?
Yep.
Okay, I'll bundle 1, 2, and 3.
All right, we have PW 1, 2, and 3.
Move them.
Second.
Any discussion? Not all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Those are carried. PW 4.
I would now like to do PW 4.
Move it.
Second.
Mr. Vitale.
Mr. Chairman, during Public Works, we amended that to, because of the contract that was already done, to pay for it out of the reserves that we created for our road and infrastructure. And what I'd like to do is make another amendment to that, we first use the bridge money that we have in the 2018 budget, sign the rest of that to this project, encumber it in 2018, and then the balance take out of the reserve. So that we're using the money that we had for 2018, we use that. So I don't know what that balance is, but I think as of December 15th, we should determine what that balance is and then encumber that toward this project.
So we have a motion to amend PW 4. Do we have a second? Mr. Batman, any discussion? Mr. Pinckney?
I'm in favor of going along with that. I'd just like, if we're going to do that next year, I would hope that we could earmark before we do it specifically, and then go accordingly, but I understand.
Further discussion? Mr. Dennison?
So this we'll be using the rest of any bridge money we have left, which makes sense. And then we'll be using part of that $2 million that we put in there last year that we haven't used.
Correct.
I'm good with that.
Further discussion?
Will this impact our 2019 budget?
No.
No. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So that is the amendment, so now we will vote on PW 4 as amended.
Move it. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. PW 5.
Mr. Chairman, PW 5 needs a 2/3 vote, I believe.
So we can do a roll call vote on PW 5.
Motion.
We have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right, do a roll call vote.
Tucker Whitman,
Yes.
Andy Dennison,
Yes.
Ben Vitale,
Yes.
Chris Petrus,
Yes.
Paul Pickney,
Yes.
Aileen McNabb Coleman,
Yes.
Keith Batman.
Yes.
Joe DeForest is excused. Charlie Ripley.
Yes.
Joseph Bennett.
Yes.
Elaine Daly.
Yes.
Timothy Lattimore.
Yes.
Michael Didio.
Yes.
Ryan Foley.
Yes.
Pat Mahonik.
Yes.
Pass.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Lattimore.
I don't want to hold up the proceedings, but I would like some clarification on the Joseph F. Karpinski educational system. I mean, on the sewer pump station, is that not part of the Owasco sewer? Is it a county responsibility, or is it the town of Owasco's responsibility for that?
It's our pump station.
It's our pump station? Sewer and water put that pump in?
Mr. Duckett?
It was before my time. It is possible if Cayuga County Soil and Water put it in, but I don't know that for a fact.
It's not part of the Owasco sewer?
No, it's not part of the Wasco sewer. It's part of the Mercy Park infrastructure. We have several sewer pits up there that do not belong to the town of Wasco. They belong.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification.
Mr. Whitman, anything else?
No, sir.
All right, judicial and public safety.
Judicial and Public Safety, Mr. Chairman, has two resolutions. They've been through committee and passed, so I'll offer them as a bundle.
Move them.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. Would anybody like to speak to the two local laws that we have?
Has it been an hour?
Benham?
Mr. Chairman, I will abstain on the, since I hold that position now for vice chair for the, I will abstain on the raise.
We haven't even gotten to that part yet.
I know. Just in case.
So, anybody like to speak on those two local laws? All right, if not, I will close that portion of the meeting, and we can move on with Ledge 1. We'll take them individually, I would assume. Ledge 1, designating December 13th, 2018 as the date of the final meeting of the Cayuga County Legislature for the fiscal year 2018.
Move it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. All right, a local law, Ledge 2, local law providing for salary increase for Cayuga County Vice Chairperson elected for a fixed term during their term. Mr. Lattimore, you want to abstain? Or, I'm sorry, we had a motion?
Let's move it.
Second? Discussion?
I'll abstain.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Mayor?
2
nays. All right, Ledge 3. Sorry, Ledge 3 is not on the agenda.
Ledge 3, what is this? Surprise?
Jerry Houdini.
It's not
Who are the
December
names?
yet.
I see it, no, you don't.
Mr. Pinckney and Mr. Didio,
Thank you.
go right ahead.
Ledge 3 is not on the agenda because you're not ready to set the law. The purpose of the hearing tonight was to have the public hearing on what the salary will be. You'll have to know who you're going to hire and at what salary before you adopt that law to set the salary. So now we've had the hearing. When you do come forward and select a candidate, you'll have had the hearing for compliance purposes, and you'll be eligible to amend. The placeholder that's in there is what the previous county attorney was paid, but that can be amended now after the public hearing and before you pass the law.
So, any other business to come before this body?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are out.